Namaskar and welcome. I'm Dada Vedaprajinananda, and I'm going to give a presentation on Tantra, the science of liberation. And this is a presentation which I usually give in person with as a slideshow or sometimes without. But I've done it this way so that I can share it for people who can't attend to see this kind of thing in person. And one thing I have to say before I begin, whatever I'm going to tell you here now is based on the work of my teacher, my guru, Shrii Shrii Anandamurti. And at the end of the presentation, you'll get a chance to see the exact sources of the material that I'm using. So without further ado, let us begin. So Tantra, this is an ancient spiritual tradition and it dates back 7,000 years. And what does it mean? Tan is a Sanskrit root, means to expand. Tra, that which liberates. So hence, Tantra is the practice that liberates through expansion. There is another meaning of Tantra, and it goes like this. Ta is a Sanskrit root which stands for dullness and staticity. Tra, that which liberates. So taken together, Tantra is the practice that liberates a person from the bondage of physical forces. So what is the history? Indian civilization has two underlying spiritual traditions. There's the Vedic tradition and the Tantric tradition. So these are two important streams in the flow of Indian civilization that we have to come to understand. So the Vedic tradition originated outside of India, although there are some people who will dispute this, but latest trends in genetics and DNA sourcing of migrations backs this theory that the Vedas originated outside of India. So the Aryans were a nomadic people, and they lived to the west of India, in Iran and Central Asia, even Russia. In fact, an older name of Iran was Aryana Vraja. And at first they were animists, and they worshipped the natural forces. If they saw fire, and then lightning, and thunder, and rain, and they believed that there was a god behind each one of these natural forces, or there was some spirit behind these forces. And that was the first kind of worship that was all over the world. People were doing that, not just the Aryans. And their sages, who were known as the rishis, began to think about the origin of these forces. So they composed books, but they're really not books, they're oral teachings, but they composed a body of knowledge which are known as the Vedas. So the rishis came to the understanding that there was one force, one consciousness behind the many forces of nature. And they called it Parama Purusha, supreme consciousness, supreme being. And the rishis also developed a philosophy and a religion based on this very fundamental concept. But as I said before, there was no written script when the rishis began their quest. And they composed rhymed texts, couplets, and longer poems that were memorized by the scholars. And the collection of these philosophical and religious texts were called Vedas, and Veda means knowledge. And the oldest one is called Rig Veda. And Rig Veda actually, it comes from Rik. It's a kind of stanza. It refers to the structure of the stanzas that were used. But in any case, it dates back 15,000 years before us. And then there was the Yajur Veda, was composed between 7,000 to 10,000 years ago. And Atharva Veda was composed 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. So what's in the Vedas? That's an important question. What is there? It was a philosophy about the Supreme Being, about Paramapurusha and the qualities or the factors of this Supreme Being. But there were also prayers and rituals and sacrifices. And what we commonly call the Hindu religion is really the religion based on the Vedas. And as I said before, the early portion of the Vedas were composed outside of India. And there's another important development in this story of Indian spirituality and of Tantra, was that the Aryans began to migrate because they were nomadic people and they were always looking for places that would be more fertile than what they were living on. So the Aryans migrated eastward in search of the fertile lands. And when they reached India, they really loved it, and they call it Bharata Varsha, and means the land which nourishes and expands. In India, though, the invading Aryans clashed with indigenous peoples, the indigenous nations or races that were living there. So who were the indigenous people of India? There were a group called Austrics, and they were similar to, we can say, the Australian Aborigines. They were a term, my guru calls them Mongolians, but they were from Nepal and Tibet. And they were Dravidians from the south of India. The indigenous people of India, this is a very important thing, they were already practicing a form of Tantra and yoga. They already had their own spiritual practice. Their practice was based on meditation and internal exploration rather than external worship. So when the Aryans came into India and they met the peoples that were already there, there was culture clash. Around 7,000 years ago, there was turmoil as the invading Aryans fought with the Austrics, Mongolians, and Dravidians. And in the middle of this turmoil, a great spiritual leader was born, someone who would unite the warring factions. And he was called Sadashiva or Shiva. He was a historical person, not a god. Although in the Hindu pantheon there is a mythological Shiva, but we're talking about now a historical person. And he was Indo-Tibetan. That means that he was of mixed parentage, and Tibetan is, like I said before, was one of the races that was prevalent in India at that time. And he was a great spiritual teacher and a social reformer. He was the founder of Indian music and the founder of Indian medicine. So let's talk about Shiva and medicine. Prior to Shiva, there was a form of Ayurveda practiced in India. And Shiva systematized medical practice into a body known as Vedic Shastra. He knew many remedies, and he was thought to be immortal, and he was given the name Mrityunjaya, or conqueror of death. And even there's a popular saying in India, even today, they would say, even Shiva couldn't find a cure for this disease. So what are his contributions to civilization? As a social reformer, he preached that all humans belong to one family. He placed great importance on marriage, because prior to Shiva, then there was not a strong institution of marriage. He married wives from the different ethnic groups, which helped to cement social unity. So there was Ganga, who was a Mongolian, Kali, a Dravidian, and Parvati, an Aryan. So what about Shiva and music? And here's a a statue of what's called Shiva Nataraj, Shiva dancing, and we'll talk about that. He was the founder of Indian music, and he was known as Nataraja, the Lord of the Dance. And he also invented, sorry for the misprint there, he invented Tandava, which is like a jumping dance. And his wife Parvati invented Lalita Marmika, which is a more gentle dance with mudras or gestures. Tala, which comes from Tandava and Lalita, Tala, the basic rhythms of Indian music are a combination of Ta from Tandava and La from Lalita Marmika. And Shiva was also a skilled singer, and one of his names was Narada Tanu. So, and also another thing, based on the sounds of the 7 animals, Shiva invented the 7-note scale, Sura Saptaka. So the sounds of the animals, which the scale came from, are called Sadashiva, peacock, Rishabha, ox, Gandhara, goat, Madhyama, horse, Panchama, cuckoo, Dvaivata, the ass, Nishada, elephant, Sa, Ri, or Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Da, Ni. This is the Indian scale. So based on the sounds of the 7 animals, Shiva invented the 7-note scale. So what is Shiva's spiritual contribution? Because this is really, the rest of the slideshow is going to focus more on this. He systematized spiritual practices that the indigenous Indians had been practicing. And these practices are Tantra. What today we call yoga is really derived from these practices. So these practices existed before Shiva, but his contribution was that he systematized them. And he was recognized as a great spiritual teacher by the Aryans and the non-Aryans alike. So Shiva and Dharma. And Shiva's, according to my guru, this is a quote, Shiva's greatest contribution to humanity is the concept of Dharma. So what is Dharma? The fundamental characteristic of an entity is its Dharma. Human Dharma is to strive for union with God. And human Dharma is the same regardless of race, nationality, and other distinction. So the human Dharma, if I'll elaborate on that, is that in the humans there's a search for something more than the physical, the search for the infinite. And that search for the infinite ultimately is the drive which moves us to reach that union with God. This is really the fundamental nature of humans. Now, Shiva's teachings are laid down in a body of knowledge called Tantra Shastras. Shastra means that which liberates through discipline. So scriptures are commonly called Shastras in India, but the origin of the term is that which liberates through discipline. So it's a book or a body of knowledge which can liberate you, but you got to follow the discipline. Shiva's teachings, just as the early Vedas, they were given as spoken discourses, and the dialogues of Shiva and his wife Parvati are the basis of this body of knowledge. The philosophical portion was known as Nigama, and the practical portion was called Agama. So what's in the Shastras? That's an important question. So one of the central teachings or central points that Shiva was making when he was elaborating what is spirituality is the need for a guru and a disciple. So he said that the guru, there are 3 kinds, but before we go into those 3 kinds, I want to just explain. Guru is a Sanskrit word. It means dispeller of darkness. Gu means darkness. Ru means dispeller. So the one who can take away the darkness from our life. And Shiva explained that there really are three kinds of guru. So one category of guru just whispers the mantra in their disciples' ears and then leaves them to their fate. So there's not much follow-up in this kind of thing. You get your instruction, but then you're on your own. So that's lowest category. But the middle category of guru asks, are you living the right type of life as you should? But there the matter ends. He's kind of giving you hints to do better, but there's no follow-through. And the best kind is the one who gives instruction, but also punishment as well. I mean, if you don't do it, then he comes to take you to task and make sure that you follow it. So that's called the superior guru. So this was one of the things which Shiva was talking about. Now, what are the qualities of an ideal guru? So these days, anyone can go online. You have a big beard like me, and then you say, yes, I'm a guru. And it used to be, I used to make this joke that every day one plane would come from India and land in California, and some bearded guy would get off, and they said, oh, here's the next guru. But it's more difficult than that, than growing a beard or just wearing a robe or something like that. To be a guru is not an easy job. So Shiva, in his Tantra Shastras, he gave the qualities. There are 13 qualities. I might have 12 written down, but I remember there are 13. So let's see what we got. First one is the guru is tranquil. He has a tranquil mind. He has a pleasant personality. He's balanced. Self-controlled. And he's able to raise his own Kundalini and that of others too. So the Kundalini is the coiled serpentine force, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the presentation, near the end of the presentation. But the guru can not only elevate himself or herself, but he can elevate others also, anybody. The guru is modest, soberly dressed. You won't even know a guru. One time in 1979, I was in Geneva in Switzerland, and my guru was coming, and he's not a monk, he's dressed in white. We'll get to that also. People say, well, who's that guy? Who is he? People, you can't even recognize who is the guru. The guru just doesn't stand out in the crowd. The guru is modest. He's modest and soberly dressed. Of exemplary conduct. That's very important. Well established in society. Good reputation. Pure in body and mind. Adept in both spiritual theory and spiritual practice. It's not a question of to know one spiritual phrase or one mantra or two mantras, and no, but it's to know the whole background and the whole practice. Superbly intelligent. Okay. And then maintaining a balanced family life. There was no bullet point for that. That's one of the 13 qualities. So maintaining a balanced family life. The reason for that is that the guru marries in order to show other people, because most of the human race is married. So people who are married or have families, they shouldn't think that, spiritual attainment is only for monastic people. No, it's for the whole society. And the guru sets the standard by that, by himself being a married person. Yeah, and this is what I wanted to talk about a little bit before. He's established in dhyana, which is meditation, and well-versed in Tantra and mantra, well-versed in it. So he not just one mantra, but many, the whole science, the whole spiritual science. He's well-versed. And this is the last one, this was hinted at before when we had the best guru. He's able to reward and punish the disciples. So he will reward you, but if you don't do it properly, he'll also punish you. And there's a very good story about that in the Indian spiritual tradition of Milarepa, who is a Tibetan yogi, and then he went, and his guru put him through so many austerities, it was almost like torture. You had to build houses, and then the Guru said, I don't like that house, break it down, and he's building it, and he's building it by hand, he's carrying stones, he was getting sores, but the Guru had to help him to remove his ego and his previous bad sanskaras, or bad reactive momenta, bad karma. We'll talk about that later in this course. So anyway, these are the qualities of a guru, so it's not an easy task. But there are also qualities of disciples. You see, there are many people who roam around looking for I want the best guru, but they never consider, are they one of the best kind of disciples? Because there are many kind of disciples that are there. There are some people who are just dilettante, who just will just go around from guru, from teacher to teacher, but don't get involved in it. So here are Shiva in his dialogues with Parvati. This is how he explained the three kinds of disciples. The first category, and this is a quotation from my guru's book, the Discourses on Tantra, says the first category are likened to pitchers placed inversely in a tub of water. Such pitchers contain water as long as they are kept in the tub, but as soon as they are taken out, all the water pours out. So you can imagine a glass pointed downward, and you put it in the water. Well, it looks like it's full. You carry it, you pull it out, and it's empty. So some disciples are like that, one category. When the guru is there, they look like they're following everything. Then guru goes away, or adversity comes, boom, all the knowledge falls out. They have nothing left. Second category of disciples are like people who carefully climb a plum tree and pick plums from the thorny branches. But unfortunately, they become so absorbed in climbing down the tree that they completely forget about their carefully collected plums, which fall out the bags and break open on the grounds. So these are people who do a little bit of the practice, and they got a lot of knowledge and everything, but they don't conserve it properly, and eventually they also lose everything. But the best kind are like pitchers positioned right side up. When such pitchers are put in a tub of water, there's water inside them and all around them. And even when they are removed, they remain full to the brim. So this is somebody's practicing at the feet of their master. The master goes away. This person is still practicing. So you should find the best kind of guru, but you should also be the best kind of disciple. So now, just as there were three kinds of gurus and there are three kinds of disciples, and there were qualities of a guru, there's also qualities of a disciple. Disciplined and ready to carry out instructions and command of the master. There's a misprint there, sorry about that. And they must have requisite knowledge and experience. Control over mind, just like the guru has to have control over mind, the disciple also. Of noble soul, of noble conduct, and tranquil mind. These qualities mirror the qualities of the guru. Modest and reverent, possessing sharp memory and perseverance. Modest, also like the guru. Reverent and possessing a sharp memory and perseverance. All-around competence and zealousness in the practice of raising the Kula Kundalini. And well-informed, self-restrained. So you get the picture there. It's also, just like the guru has to have those qualities, disciple also has to have these qualities of control of mind and peacefulness and zeal and sharp memory and intellect. And it's not an easy task. Now, this is an important point. Whenever a worthy disciple is taught by a competent preceptor, spiritual progress is a certainty. This is the important thing. Just like you have to have, if let's say you have a seed, it falls on rocks, then the seed is not going to grow. But if the seed, good seed, a worthy disciple, and is a competent preceptor, or a competent preceptor, let's say that's the seed, and then the worthy disciple is the soil, then spiritual progress is a certainty. So you have a good environment there. You have to have both components to get the spiritual progress. Now, I'm talking about Tantra, and in this presentation, people usually ask me, yeah, I've heard of Tantra, but it has a very bad name. So what's the deal here? Why does Tantra have such a bad reputation? So in the scriptures, Tantra Shastras, and in the history of Tantra, there's some practices which are very important, but they were misunderstood. So long after the time of Shiva, Tantra went into decline. It was not well understood. And there were 5 practices, each beginning with the letter M, which illustrate this problem. So the first one is called Madhya, and the literal meaning is wine. But the yogic meaning is divine nectar. So, when Shiva taught, we're talking about 7,000 years ago. This is before the pyramids. This is in a time when most of our historians will call prehistory. I see I'm running over time. I'm looking at my time. Prehistory. So people were not that developed, in a sense. And there were some people who were struggling to get control over their animal nature, and some people ready for spirituality. So there were 2 different kind of practices. Madhya was wine. Drink the wine in a sacramental way and then refrain from it, learn how to control it. But the yogic meaning of Madhya is divine nectar, and this was a practice where people would do fasting, and then they would realize a secretion from the pineal gland going to the pituitary gland, and they would get a form of bliss called samadhi. Mamsa is another one. The literal meaning is meat. So people who eat too much meat, Shiva taught them how to eat it in a sacramental way, and then even to refrain from taking it. But Mamsa for the yogi had another meaning. Mamsa for the yogi meant control over the tongue. And then the next one after that is called Matsya. It's fish. Fish is the same as the meat or the wine on the physical side. But for the yogic side, it meant pranayama, or the control of the breath. And then mudra. The physical practice was taking parched grains, possibly drugs. It's not really well known exactly what mudra meant on the physical side. But on the spiritual side, one of the meanings was keeping good company. And also another one of the mudra meanings is mudra is a gesture. Different kind of gestures that you see them in Indian dance and other parts of Indian iconography and culture. But the 5th M is the one that caused all the bad rep for Tantra. And the 5th M is called Maithuna, and it literally meant sexual union. So here, what was Shiva taught on that side years ago is not well understood. But again, if you look at it like with the wine and meat and all these things, the idea is to get this physical desire, bring it under control. But the spiritual practice, the union is not physical. It means the raising of the spiritual force Kundalini and merging it with the pure consciousness of the union of unit and cosmic consciousness, which is yoga. So really, Maithuna, the real meaning of it is yoga, the union of the individual consciousness with the cosmic consciousness. So this is what the 5 M's are. So if people look only at the physical side, well, it looks like a very bad thing. But if you look at it on the yogic side, you see that this is the foundation of all the practices which we know as yoga today. So the subtle 5 M's, Madhya, divine nectar, Mamsa, control of speech, Matsya, breath control. Mudra, keeping good company. Maithuna, union with God. So these practices are the basis of what we call yoga today. No doubt about that. Now, there's another part which Shiva also explained in his teachings, in his dialogues with Parvati. The idea of mantra. Mantra is very important, and the concept of initiation. So mantra is a compound. Man means the mind, tra, expansion, that which elevates the mind. So what are the qualities of a mantra? What really makes up a mantra? It has rhythm and vibration. It has meaning, which is also in Ananda Marga philosophy or lexicon, we call it ideation. And the idea of it is it links the individual rhythm with the cosmic rhythm. So that's why when you get personal instruction, you will learn an individual mantra. It may not be the same as another person. And the reason is because it'll be best suited for linking your personal rhythm with the cosmic rhythm. And it has one more thing. It has a meaning. As we think, so we become. So this is the psychological basis of the mantra. So it means the mantra has its rhythm, but it also has its meaning. It has its vibration, but it also has its meaning. And as we think, so we become. So we think something good. We don't think of something bad, because if you think I am a sinner, you become that. If you think I'm a chair, you become solid, you become inert. So the mantra reminds us of something great. Now, how to get the proper mantra? I remember there's a story of one woman who was in Philadelphia in 1970, and then she heard one yogi is coming. She says, "Yeah, they're giving out mantras." So that was the thing. You had to get a mantra from a yogi. So the tantric process of imparting a mantra is called diksha, and there's no English equivalent of this word. Initiation is often used, but is not descriptive. So diksha or dika, it can also be pronounced like that. Diksha is how you get the problem. What is going on in diksha? Let's look at that. D, we break down the word. D equals torch or light. Ksha means destruction of karma, previous actions. So in the process of imparting a mantra, the teacher helps to remove the past sanskaras or karma, and he shows a way to concentrate properly. That's very important, because if I just give you a mantra, then you say, well, you're lost. What am I supposed to do? So the D is the torch. So you're giving a light. So if you're in a dark place and you have a light, then you can find your path. And that is included in the instruction of when you get your mantra. Now there's another part that's very important. I once taught a parrot in Jordan to dance. I was singing the mantra Bhavanam Kevalam, and the parrot is dancing in the cage. And you can look that up. Parrot dances kirtan. So the parrot was jumping around to the mantra. But the parrot can't conceptualize the mantra. That's the defect. Although the parrot is probably more regular than most people, that parrot's probably still doing it. It's been 15 years. The parrot could still be doing the mantra, but it's not going anywhere, because you have to conceptualize what the mantra means. So meditation with proper understanding of the meaning of the mantra is called mantra chaitanya. So mantra chaitanya is the conceptualization of the mantra. Mantra chaitanya. Chaitanya means like consciousness, the consciousness of the mantra. So the practice of mantra chaitanya leads to what happens when you say the mantra properly, with the proper meaning and understanding. It does something. It's called mantra agat, and there's a typographical error there. Striking of the mantra strikes a sleeping energy, the Kundalini. It awakens the Kundalini. And So meditation with proper understanding is the meaning of the mantra Chaitanya, and mantra Chaitanya leads to the striking mantra God. So this is just a picture of the chakras and of the path of the Kundalini. The Kundalini rises up through the body. We'll talk about more. I think a little bit more is coming. Yeah, here it's coming now. So there are 7 principal psychic centers in the body, and they're known as chakras. We really like to spell it Chakras. This is the Roman special Sanskrit transliteration that used in the Ananda Marga system. But since chakra has crept into the language, I'll spell it normally like you guys do. So the chakras are connected with the mind and mental propensities. And in higher lessons, meditators use the chakras to aid the concentration process. It's very important. So here's the chakras. So at the base of the body is the Muladhara chakra, and then just a little bit above that is Swadhisthana chakra, and the Manipura chakra is at a level with the navel, you can say. Anahata chakra, sometimes commonly called the heart chakra, is in on the level of the center of the chest. And Vishuddha chakra is in the throat. Agya chakra, Agya is a proper pronunciation, is in between the 2 eyes. And Sahasrara, which is called the 1,000-petaled lotus, is at the top of the head. I'm going to do another class where we go deeper into this, the meaning of these chakras and what they do and how they affect the body and mind. Now the Kundalini is the coiled spiritual force residing at the base of the spine. And in advanced spiritual practice, this force rises through the different chakras, and it causes different kinds of realizations or samadhis, different kind of states of bliss that come. So this is the classic understanding that the mantra raises the Kundalini through the chakras until we get that union, which I spoke about before, that union with the Supreme Consciousness, union with God. We get yoga, actually. So here's how my guru explains it. The unconscious animality residing in the base of the spine in a coiled form is nothing but the latent divine force. The first and foremost phase of spiritual practice lies in awakening the Kula Kundalini from her long hibernation with the help of a proper wave coming from a great spiritualist with the help of a proper mantra. So here's the whole, you could say this is Tantra in a nutshell right there. And the inner spirit of raising of the Kundalini or Kula Kundalini is for one to control the propensities. So the propensities are what the chakras are controlling, and the seed sounds of the different glands, and to suspend oneself in Paramashiva, the nucleus consciousness, whose rank is above the scope of all the instincts and seed sounds. So these chakras actually contain the instincts, and they contain different kinds of root sounds. But the goal actually is to go beyond that, that we go to the Supreme Consciousness, which is beyond all of that. Now, Tantra also has an effect on society because there's like a philosophy that goes with Tantra. So the spirit of Tantra is to strive to overcome obstacles and imperfections, and it is an internal struggle and an external struggle. So people who practice Tantra develop vigorous personalities and often become great social leaders fighting against injustice. So there's some cases of that. One of the great freedom fighters of India, his name is Subhash Chandra Bose. He was a tantrika. He practiced advanced tantric meditation, and he had a very vigorous personality, and he became a great social leader, although the history that was written after him tried to neglect him. But really, if you investigate, you'll see that he's one of the fathers of the Indian independence. Now, this is a very important point here. So spiritual practice means practice of expansion. And this expansion is nothing but a liberation from the bondage of all sorts of dullness or staticity. And here comes a very important sentence. A person who, irrespective of caste, creed, or religion, aspires for spiritual expansion or does something concrete is a tantric. So Tantra in itself is neither a religion nor an ism. Tantra is a fundamental spiritual science. And I'm going to say one more thing on that last thing. My guru also said that wherever there is spirituality, there's real spirituality, the principles of Tantra are also there. So what you can read more about these. So this presentation is based on the book Namah Shivaya Shantaya and the following essays: Tantra and Sadhana, Tantra and the Indo-Aryan Civilization, and Tantra and its effect on society. And these essays are found in the book Discourses of Tantra, Part 1 and Part 2. And also I have a simplified version of this whole slideshow. It's in my book called The Wisdom of Tantra, The Wisdom of Tantra by Dada Vedaprajinananda. You can get it on Amazon or at my website, different places you can order it. And so this whole presentation is actually in a kind of a abbreviated form, but it's in that book. It's one of the chapters. So this is Tantra and the presentation of Tantra, the science of liberation. It's also it gives insight into the history of spirituality in India and the history of yoga. There's some more points about that which I'll maybe make at another time. But for now, we'll leave it at this, and I'm going to do all the different chapters of my book in these slideshows, which will be posted as videos on YouTube. So people who were not able to attend the classes will be able to access them. So I just want to say farewell to everybody, and I give the greeting from India, Namaskar. It means I salute you with my mind and all the love and cordiality of my heart, and I salute the divinity within you. So thanks for listening and watching. And if you like this, you can subscribe to the channel. Although I don't care, I'm not trying to get anything from this. The main thing is I want this teaching to live for a long, long time and to reach as many people as possible. So thank you very much.